Thanks for stopping back out at the ranch. I'm Marie and this is Red Hart Quilts. I have a question for you today. Have you ever gone to a quilt shop and seen these beautiful fabrics that are already cut for you? They're called Precuts. This is called a layer cake. It's a 10 by 10 square. There's 42 pieces, so it's the entire collection. They all coordinate. This is called a charm pack. It's 5 by 5 squares. This is called a jelly roll. It's 2.5 inches by 42 inches, which is the width of the fabric, and it's also all the collection. These are just a few of the pre-cuts that are available today in the quilt shops, and we see them in the quilt shop and we love them and they're so beautiful. We have to have them. So we take them home, and what do we do with them? We put them in the shelf, we put them in the drawer, and we're not quite sure how to use them. I'm going to show you a little thing today. It's just a quilt that I put together. I use one charm pack, which is 5 by 5 squares, and one jelly roll, which is the 2.5 inch strips. That's all we need to make the quilt behind me, and it makes this size. I don't even have a name for this quilt. I just called it Why Not, because why not try it? I take my jelly roll, and it's got all these beautiful fabrics. I'm going to take them, line them up on my mat. Because my 5 inch square is 5 inches, what piece size do I need? Obviously 5 inches. I'm going to cut 5 inch strips, and also I'm going to cut 9 inch pieces. And I'll tell you why in just a second. I line up my strips on the mat, and you can cut how many ever you're comfortable cutting. If you're comfortable cutting through 2, cut through 2. If you're comfortable cutting through 10, cut through 10. I didn't cut very good on that one. We're going to do this again. We're going to cut. I cut my 9 inch piece first. I always try to cut my long ones first, because if I goof that up, I can cut my shorter one out of it and recut my longer one. Sometimes if I cut my short one first, I don't have enough space or enough fabric to recut a longer one. So my rule of thumb is to just cut the longest ones first, then I know I have it and I'm safe. So I'm going to cut my 9 inch piece first, and I'm putting my ruler on my 9 inch mark, holding the ruler with the pressure of my hand, and then I'm going to go to 14. Because 9 and 5 is 14. So I'm going to do that to all my jelly roll strips. I have a little bit extra. This is the fold. This is left over after I cut my pieces. So I'm going to set those aside. You'll see that I made my border out of those. Once we have all of our strips cut, we're going to pair them with our charm pack. You'll see that you can put all the different colors together. This one I've chosen. Put all those aside. I've gotten my little blue charm square, and I picked this color to go with it. I pin 2 sides, and I pin across the top. I'm going to sew this here 1/4 inch. I'm going to pin both sides actually at the same time before I go to my sewing machine. Why not, right? That's what we're calling this quilt. Why not do it this way? Put a pin in both sides. These are not the pins I usually use. And I put a pin across. Those who know me know I don't want to take my pins out while I'm sewing. So I put my pins farther away so that my pressure foot can go down and I don't have a problem with it. I can sew from here to here and not take my pin out, and here to here and not take my pin out. Once I have those sewn, of course, we are going to press it. So I have them sewn 1/4 inch. I press it to the outside or my darker piece. Then I'm going to sew the other 2 pieces, top and bottom. I'm going to pin it. So this is such a quick little thing to do. And it's a good way to use the charm pack and the jelly roll. People ask me, well, can I use my layer cake? Yeah, you could, but you cannot get you do not have enough in a 42-inch strip of your jelly roll to go around a 10-inch square 4 times. It's not long enough because, so you would need 2 jelly rolls for 1 layer cake. So we're using charm pack and jelly roll. We put it top and bottom. We're going to pin them. And again, we had our 5-inch squares. We cut a 9-inch piece and a 5-inch piece. We sew the 2 5-inch pieces to the 2 sides. We sew the 9-inch piece. See how it's exactly the size we needed. Because we had a 5-inch square, we had a 2.5-inch strip and a 2.5-inch strip. That's not 10 inches. When we sew this strip here and the strip here, we lose a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch. A quarter and a quarter is a 1/2 inch. So we started with 5 inches, 2.5, 2.5. We end up with 9. That's why we cut these 9 inches. So remember, charm pack, jelly roll. Cut your jelly roll in 5-inch pieces and 9-inch pieces, and that's all we need to sew. Sew your top and bottom, pin them and sew them, and of course press them, right? This is what it is. Pin it and sew it. Now it needs to be pressed. I'm going to press that to my dark or to my outside, and it's going to look like this. Isn't that pretty? Very simple, very pretty. You could sew them together just like this, and that's fine, but I thought, why not cut them in half? I'm going to take 2 of them. I'm going to actually cut them in half. And to do this, I'm going to put my seams the same direction. You probably don't have to. I just do. Yes, I'm cutting both of them in half at the same time. I'm going to go to my mat. I always let my mat do the work for me. It adds, and I know this is a 9-inch square. Remember, we put a 9-inch strip on it, so it's a 9-inch. And I'm going to cut this in half at 4.5 inches. You can do all of these like this, and then we're going to mix them up. You want to put all your pretty colors together. They all coordinate because it's all the same collection in the little package. All these will go together. All of them match. No matter how you put it together, you might think, oh, that gray just does not match that blue. It does in the whole picture. The combinations and the coordinates and the collections done by designers are made to all match. They're all the right values and the right tones. Just a little side trip there. Okay, so after we've got all our strips sewn on and we've chosen all of our colors and they all match, then we're going to sew this back together. And you won't put these 2 back together. You will get some of your other ones and mix them all up as much as you want. See what happens when we sew them back together? Of course, I don't have one that's done that way. Then we're going to sew them here. We do not have a square anymore after we sew this together because we're losing a 1/2 inch. Now we're going to have an 8.5 by 9-inch square. Still going to be our 9 inches long. Remember, we sewed the 9-inch on the side. But because we're doing this seam, it's going to be 8.5. So you can't sew them together like this because it would be too short. One side, this one actually loses a quarter. So see, it would be too short. So if you're going to do it this way, you need to have all your blocks in the same direction. I haven't even squared this up. If your 1/4 inch is consistent and if you have pressed it nicely, you shouldn't even have to square up this block. And we all like that, right? It's not our favorite thing to square up. And I know that. It's not my favorite thing either. But it's a very important thing to do. This one I'm letting you get away with not squaring this up. Sew it together and put it in strips. Just sew them like this into your rows, and then put your rows into your blocks. If I wanted to be really fun with this, why not, right? That's the name. Why not cut it again? You would probably stack more of these if you were going to really mix up your colors. I haven't, but you probably would. And then cut them apart again at 4.5 the other direction. You can do this. If you're going to cut them twice like this, you would want to cut them before you sew the other two back together, because then you can mix them up. And they have 4 squares. See what happens? You have this. We cut them up. You would, of course, mix these up. You don't want them to be all matchy-matchy. We want our quilt to be all fun and scrappy. So we sew those back together. Now we have 4 pieces. Why not cut them again, right? I didn't want to. I wanted to see, oh, this is going to be just a charm pack and a jelly roll, simple little quilt. So I didn't cut mine apart, but you could. Once we get the squares sewn into rows, and then you get your rows sewn together. This one's 6 rows, 7 rows, 6 across. And then we're going to use up these extra jelly roll scraps. They're not really scraps if we want to use them, right? They're important pieces, and they're going to make our border. What I did, I just took them end to end. One of them I cut in half, because I didn't want to have the same one. See how this is little and this is big? So I cut one in half, and then I started sewing them. I sewed them all together. If you've ever done what's called the jelly roll race, that's how you sew them together. You just sew them end to end until you run out of them. And then you sew it together again so that you have 2 together. Here. So what I've done is I've sewn these together, and then I sewed another row on it. Just like this. Very simple. You wouldn't put the same color on there. You'd get another color. See, so just keep mixing them up until you get your pieces together, and then we're going to use that for our border. We know that we put the borders on the long sides first, then the top and the bottom, and we quilt it, we bind it, and we have our little quilt together. I hope this has given you a little idea of how to use some of your pre-cuts. Of course, I want you to use up all your pre-cuts, so you'll come to me and buy some more. This little quilt, like I said, you can do 1 jelly roll, 1 charm pack, makes this size, 6 blocks by 7 blocks. And I hope you have fun with this. I hope you've enjoyed this little demo. Thanks for stopping in. We'll see you back at the ranch. And until next time, thanks. Bye.